All right, welcome to episode 11 of the Bulls REKAP Podcast. I'm Joe Cowley of the Chicago Sun-Times, live from lovely California. You can read me in the Chicago Sun-Times, the sports section. You could follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at @JCowleyHoops. And this is, I'm excited about this guest. I've had all of his brotherhood on from CHGO, Peck, Big Dave, Will Gottlieb, obviously. So let's bring in the big man himself, four-time NBA champion, and I think 1988 SEC Basketball Player of the Year, correct?
I was actually, not to toot my own horn, but I was actually the athlete of the year. So
okay,
that covers all sports.
How in the hell does that happen? I'm trying to think. 88 SEC football had to be Derek Thomas, probably had to be at Alabama. Emmitt Smith had to be at Florida State. Or Florida, sorry.
Something in that. I mean, honestly, Joe, I don't remember.
I mean, that's that's bigger than the 4 NBA championships, if you ask me. I mean, that's some big boy competition.
Well, probably from an individual standpoint, yeah. But the interesting thing was I remember that because they give the award out during the SEC meetings down in Florida, and on my trip down to Florida, because I was in Nashville training for the draft,
right,
working out. And they lost my clothes. So I actually, just recently saw a picture where I'm wearing a shirt that I borrowed from the Ole Miss coach. Last name was Murphy, if I remember correctly. A tie that I borrowed from him as well. Sleeves rolled up and shorts and docksiders.
For the picture?
Yeah, because they lost my clothes. So I had no suit. And I think, it might have been, I think the swimmer maybe from Florida was the female athlete of the year.
Would it be Dana Torres?
Is it Torres? Maybe, yeah, something like that. But so you got all these SEC officials. Everybody else is dressed real nice. And I'm the bum wearing shorts and a tie and docksiders, no socks.
Someone's medium shirt that you borrowed. Nice.
I mean, something that would, quite honestly, Joe, fit right down your alley.
Yeah, I would. That is my fastball. So, hey, Will, how do you like? Obviously, I've seen the show, and I complimented the boys on how I felt like the evolution of that show has come. How do you like doing the CHGO stuff?
I really like it. I mean, it's honestly, it's not really that much different than when I was with NBC Sports Chicago. Outside of I don't have to wear a coat and tie, which is kind of nice.
Right.
But it's I'm trying to think of the best word to use there, Joe. But I really enjoy working with those guys. I worked with them when they were the Outsiders, right?
Right. I remember that show.
And I told these guys this when we talked about me coming on with CHGO, because I remember, I was pounding on John Shipman, Kevin Cross about how, I was an independent contractor with NBC Sports Chicago, and, I felt I deserved a raise. I wanted to make a little more money for what I was doing. Right. And they told me there's no money in the budget and can't do anything. Really sorry. Maybe next year. And then all of a sudden they announced that they're going to do this, outsider show because of the success it's had, in San Francisco with the Golden State Warriors. And I was like, no money in the budget, huh? So these guys come on. So, it's Big Dave, Peck, John Sabine. Needless to say, I was a little resistant at first because I was like, what is this show? What's the deal here?
Right.
And so we used to hang out in the green room and watch the games together. And like I say, these guys were great guys from day one. It had nothing to do person they were or their personalities or anything like that. I just kind of thought their show was a little goofy. You know me. I'm kind of a straight-laced guy. Stick to the facts type thing, and I just wasn't sure what this show was about. But the longer they were around, the more I got to know them, and it kind of, I told these guys, I learned something from these guys, quite honestly, because I realized you don't necessarily have to be a player to understand the game and talk about it,
right?
And
right.
actually know about it, right? And so then I kind of opened up about it, and just we started talking about the game itself, why we were watching it, and I was like, these guys, they're actually very intelligent. They really know the game, and they're just over the top Bulls fans.
Yeah, they're invested fans. Yeah,
I think that's a good way to put it. Invested.
Yeah, and
we actually, became started a relationship, became friends. They eventually, morphed into CHGO. They've been doing pretty good. CHSN called me and said, "Hey, we're not bringing you over. We're just going with a 2-man crew." So
did that piss you off when that phone call happened, or no?
Yeah, I was very disappointed. It came kind of late in the summer, and at that point, I was like, "Uh-oh," because I thought listen, Kendall, I, and Jason were, constantly in contact. Have you heard anything? Have you heard anything? Haven't heard anything. What's going on? What's happening?
Right.
And then all of a sudden one day I got the call, and it was just, unfortunately, we're not going to bring you on. We're just going with a 2-man. It was kind of a kick in the you-know-what. And it really surprised me. And it's probably the most disappointing thing at the time. Was something that I thoroughly enjoyed doing. 2 guys that I, really enjoyed working with. And before golf, remember, it was Mark Shanowski.
Right.
People that I had really become friends with at NBC Sports Chicago that had moved over to CHSN. I just assumed that, I was going to be, because, the interesting thing was, one thing that we knew, and when I say we, Goff, Shanowski, myself, Kendall, Bulldog, Kevin Anderson used to always talk about when they would go to the meetings, preseason league meetings, right, and talk about the broadcast and everything.
Yeah.
We were consistently told, and it was relayed back to us, that the league felt like we had the best show just behind TNT.
Right.
It felt like, we were told by their creative.
That was the
staffs.
feedback. That was the feedback you guys were getting.
Yeah, every year, everybody, they really enjoyed our show. They thought we had the best show amongst all the teams in the league.
Yeah.
And, they thought we, if it wasn't regional, that we'd be able to compete with the, Chuck and Kenny and Shaq, stuff like that, because, we do some similarities. Listen, TV's a copycat. The league's copycat. Something
Right.
works, you jump on board, right? So we were all just under the assumption that the Bulls knew this. The smartest thing to do would be to just bring everybody over, just plug us in and let us go. And they decided they wanted to go with a 2-man crew. And like I said, I kind of felt like something was stolen from me, that they had taken away something from me that I truly enjoyed doing. And it hit me pretty hard for a couple days. Even to the point that when, I received that phone call, the phone call literally lasted 90 seconds because I was so stunned when I received the phone call. I didn't want to get emotional on the phone. I didn't want my emotions to get the best of me. So I just said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you very much." And that was pretty much the end of it.
So obviously, if you could go back, you would have said, "Well, why?" why is this decision being made?
Yeah, but I felt like that I probably would have said some things that I shouldn't have because I would have gotten emotional because of how disappointed I was. And, I finished the conversation, immediately called my wife, and I think I probably took some of it out on her. But she understood. She handled it. And that's the one thing, she talked me off the ledge. And, we talked about it later that night when she got home from work, and then we started talking about options. And I said, well, the problem with the word options is there's really none because we're regional. So, I started reaching out. Score wasn't interested. 1000 wasn't interested. WGN's not interested, TV or radio. So I'm like, what do I do? I tried to get back on board with ESPN, already filled. TNT doesn't need anything. So I kind of was like flapping in the wind. And, I reached out to the guys at the CHGO and I talked to Peck about it and kind of leaned on him a little bit to get his advice. And I was very fortunate. He's like, dude, we'd love to have you. So, it's, I guess you could say I was very fortunate because of that relationship that established with Matt and Big Dave that they were willing to kind of go to bat for me with the people from CHGO. And it's just, it kind of fell into place. And it's been really enjoyable. I love working with those guys. We get off the tracks a lot because
I saw the foot fetish one, which are big. What size ass foot is that? Like 21, 22? What is that?
Size 20.
20? They did a close up of it, and I'm sure there were some people that took some pictures. And good thing you had that big old sock on, because
that's also the thing I was proud of, because my wife had done some research, as she always does, because she's like, we got to up your sock game, and
that was a good sock. It looked like a very scholarly Vanderbilt sock.
Scholarly. All right, Joe, here you go. Hold on.
What do we got? A dog?
Yeah. This is the newest addition.
Oh,
to the
look
Perdue
at it.
Family. There's Birdie right there. Birdie's almost 9 months old. The boxer, for those that are wondering.
Is Birdie more aggressive than Patrick Williams? Bet Birdie is. Bet Birdie grab a rebound.
Since you brought it up that way, I would have to say that Birdie is very aggressive. She's very playful, very aggressive, and loves to play catch.
So let me ask you this. So you're at CHGO now. Because obviously I've been covering Jerry Reinsdorf teams for 98 to 2012 with the White Sox, a couple of years off. And then I've been with the Bulls since the Derrick Rose, I'm not going to play this year season. So I do know that Jerry does give certain amount of freedoms on the network with Ozzy and with opinions, but I also know that the people, I know the people under Jerry do keep a watchful eye. Do you have a certain amount of freedom now that you're at CHGO that you might not have had?
Yeah. That was the interesting thing. I never really looked at it, Joe, as when I was with, NBC Sports Chicago. I never really looked at it as, hey, I got to watch what I'm saying.
Right.
I did make a point to be very careful how I said it. Right. And,
but Jerry does want honesty from you guys.
Yeah. I mean, I've always said when I got into this business in Chicago, because I'd been with ESPN, the SEC network, when I decided to, invest and become a Chicago resident and start doing this locally, I talked to Jerry about it. I went over and talked to him, sat in his office, told him what, I wanted to do. He asked why. But I just said, I want your advice. And his advice was, you can't be a homer. The Chicago fans, they're too smart. They're too passionate. Right. You got to be honest. You got to be transparent. If you try to be a homer, they'll see right through it and it won't work. He said it's a delicate process. It's a fine line. but Chicago sports fans, they know what they want. They like to hear honest feedback, constructive criticism, positive, negative, whatever it is. Just, he said, call it like you see it. And I've tried to always do that. Now, I can honestly admit that I've crossed the line a few times. Some phone calls have been made in regard to that. I got pulled into the office a couple times over the years. Not a lot, not as many as you would probably think. Just about, hey.
Was it fair what they said? Was it fair?
Yeah, it was fair. I mean, I thought maybe they were being a little sensitive, but, it was fair. But, the one thing I always try to do is that I try to let what's developed or the question register. And then am I answering as strictly an analyst? Am I answering as a former player? There's a couple different ways, to answer, right? And I just try to be transparent and say what I feel. I know that they're not always going to like it, and I guess with CHGO, you don't even have to think about that because I'm not, connected. So it's just, but at the end of the day, it is enjoyable. I walk out of there with a smile on my face every time. Sometimes that smile, I'm shaking my head because I'm like, how the hell did we go down that path? But, it is what it is.
Yeah. Gotcha. So when you're drafted by the Bulls, like you were out of Vanderbilt, you bleed with the Bulls, get those rings, and now you're sitting there all these years later and watching this. Are you so removed from it that it isn't bothersome to you, or because of that attachment, because of that history, because of that pride you had wearing that jersey, that this shit bothers you? This long stretch of just ineptitude is bothersome.
Oh, it bothers me to the point where my wife says I need help. And what I mean by that is that, obviously, we go over to the CHGO studios, just like when I was with NBC Sports Chicago. You do your pregame show, you watch the game, you do the postgame show, and you go home. And, I can't, there's numerous times, a little less this year, but still, I just can't. Some people can do it, but I can't. I can't just come home, shut it off, and go straight to bed. Right. I'll literally get on my phone, look at the stat sheet again, think about certain plays, who did what, who could have done better. I mean, I take mental notes. I mean, I approach it quite honestly like if I was coaching. Because I was like, if I was the coach, what would I do differently? What can they do better? What do I think about this team? What do I think about this player? Because I've always told everybody, first of all, I feel very fortunate to have been here during that time frame and be a part of 3 championships.
Yeah, I mean,
when it's happening, you really don't, it's kind of a business. And yeah, I just won a championship, but we're already focused on the next year because we know what's coming, right? And because of the fact that you have all those banners hanging up in the United Center, also in the practice facility, that I feel like there's certain organizations that should be held to different standards. It's just because of their history, right?
Yep.
Chicago, 6 championships. Obviously the Celtics, right? The Lakers. The culture because of what Miami has done. San Antonio.
Golden State because of what they've done.
That is correct, Golden State. I keep wanting to say the Knicks, but, I think that's kind of gone by the wayside a little bit. But
which probably is that's probably their history right now, that it's been bad.
Right. So I guess you could say that, the Knicks and the Bulls are kind of in the same position right now, right? Yeah. They have the history. They have the reputation. They've had the culture before. right? They've had the utmost expectations, but they currently just don't have them right now. But the hope is that you do get back to that. And that's what I find so frustrating. You know, my wife and I, and here's the thing, you know, my wife loves to go to the games.
Right.
So, you know, we go to a lot of games, and she wears an old jersey of mine that I actually wore when I played. She wears it to the game. She's like, I'm representing the family. I'm representing the name. She's just like, I dare somebody to say something to me, but
right.
And I'm like, God, I hope nobody does.
One thing I always wanted to ask you, obviously, you didn't love the idea of having to leave the Bulls. That was not probably something, but winning that ring with San Antonio, did that at all give you any kind of redemption or feeling of, hey?
Now, the ring didn't. What actually, you know, I honestly, Joe, actually getting traded was a blessing.
Okay.
Quite honestly, because did I miss out on 3 more championships? Yeah. Would I have liked to have been here for that? Yes, absolutely. But I truly believe that a lot of questions that I got answered in San Antonio would have never been answered in Chicago. Right. And I know this is hard. This is going to be hard for people to fathom. You know, Phil and I just didn't see eye to eye, right? Phil's idea of, you know, a big man was Wes Unseld, right? Broad shoulders, big body, the whole thing in regards to, you know, what a big man looks like in the NBA.
Right.
I had the height, but I was slender shoulders. You know, I kind of was built like my dad, but I was also obviously a lot taller. But yet what he wants, they were the same thing, but yet he had this vision of what I should look like. Right. We had a time where I came in one year because he's like, you got to get bigger. So I played around, you know, 250, right? I played in college, I was 240. Get to the NBA, I bulk up to 250. But I was probably anywhere between 245 to 253 pretty much my whole career. He talked about how, you know, I need to get bigger and stronger and all this stuff. So I said, okay. We sat down with Al Vermeil, hammered it out. I came into training camp that year, 265. Body fat was in single digits. I mean, I looked great. I felt great. I was ready to roll. I was like, all right, this is what you want. This is what you get. Training camp started 2-a-days. By day 2, my knees were screaming.
Yeah,
I mean, it just felt like somebody was just jamming knives into my knees. It just, that pain would not go away. Now, the person that kind of chuckled at me was Bill Cartwright, because I used to make fun of Bill about his knees, his elbows. You remember what, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And he goes, you just wait. It'll get you. So when I started having these issues, he just went, told you. Right? But he wasn't being a jerk. He was just kind of, you know, giving me a hard time. MRIs, X-rays, you know, now all of a sudden they're starting to question, this dude's just making this stuff up, man. There's nothing on the X-rays. There's nothing on the MRIs. He looks good. But my knees are just, but I'm not missing any practices or nothing. I'm just like, you're not winning. Start talking to Al Vermeil. Al Vermeil is like, your body can't handle the weight. And so we didn't tell Chip Schaefer, we didn't tell Phil, we didn't tell anybody. I just slowly started losing the weight. And, you know, at that point, I started taking anti-inflammatories and all this stuff, and it was helping, but I was just like, I don't want to do this. And as I slowly started to lose the weight, boom, pain gone. So now I'm pretty much back to, you know, 248 to 252. Phil noticed he didn't like it. It's not like he didn't make a trade for Luke because of that, but yet he still had this vision of what, the center position is. So, he trades for Luke, who I became friends with.
Yeah.
And, but Luke was the body type that Phil desired. And, we were kind of always at odds, right? And I get traded to San Antonio, and I remember to this day, number one, Dave Cowens meets me at the airport, and I was like, I had kind of forgotten that Dave Cowens was one of the assistant coaches. I was still kind of in shock, right, when that all happened. And because I actually didn't see anybody, because that was during the lockout, right?
Right.
It wasn't like I could go to the Berto Center and talk to everybody and how you doing, and it was during the lockout.
Did you think they had to get Michael's approval, or things didn't work like that back then? It was a
no, I don't
Phil show, and that was it. Okay.
Yeah, things didn't work like that back then. It's
okay.
If it did, I knew nothing about it. I never, do I think they talked to Michael? Yeah, I think so, but I don't really think that, he had carried the weight back then about his opinion. Like, if his opinion carried that much weight, we would have never run the triangle.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. Yeah.
So I never even thought about that. But I just remember Dave Cowens picked me up, and I was like, oh, crap, man, I get to work with Dave Cowens. This guy's a legend. This guy's one of the best players to ever play in the league. And that was significant. And also my first meeting with Pop, we sat down, and, whether he meant it or not, but it was good to hear. Pop goes, listen, we traded for you for a reason. They tried to give us somebody else. We said no. We told them what we wanted. This is how this works. Tomorrow, when you get on that bus to go over to Austin, because Bulls used to do their training camp over at Austin at UT, Texas, right? We go to training camp, you got 4 weeks. Obviously, Dave's not going to play a lot in the preseason. So you're going to get a lot of repetitions. Your job, he goes, as far as I'm concerned, is an empty slate. Your job over the next 4 weeks is to prove what you can do. If you think you can shoot a bunch of threes, start jacking them up. If you think you can score a lot more, start calling for the ball. We'll run plays for you. He just said, we know what you can do, but we feel like it's only fair to you to allow you the opportunity to prove to us what we can do. And we'll see if what we think you can do and what you really can do match up. And I just remember we get to Austin, first day of practice, you warm up, you go down, okay, guards on one end, bigs on the other. We got all these forwards over here. We got all these baskets. We start doing our stuff. You're the dummy defense, and they're like, all right, we're going to start doing one-on-one stuff with the bigs, and Cowens is running it. Lo and behold, I didn't realize, but, the team was kind of peaking because they were curious, all right? Here's this dude, what's this guy going to do? How is he going to work with David? Blah, blah, is he going to push David? What's going to happen? Right. Everybody's kind of, what's the deal here? What's the chemistry? How's this going to work? So, we get down on the block. I'm guarding David. He makes a move. I block his shot, and all of a sudden, you just hear a lot of noise in the gym. I didn't realize these guys were watching. I'm just kind of focused on what was going on. But I was like, hey, I got to prove myself not only to Pop, but to these guys. I played against them, and I'm sure they've watched me play. But, this is my chance now. Empty slate. I know Sean Elliott and Vinny Del Negro and Avery Johnson and David and, J.R. Reed, all these guys. But my whole thing that I learned with Chicago was, I don't care if they like me. This is about earning their respect.
Yes.
Because then they're in a position where they know that I'm there to help them win. I'll do whatever it takes to win. Whether I like them or not, we get in a fight in the parking lot after a game, who cares? It's just, they know that I got their back. And I come prepared every day. And, I got to play a lot. Pop and I saw eye to eye a little more than Phil and I did. And it just kind of helped me check a lot of boxes about, what I can really do in this league. Kind of, helped justify the fact that I'm in this league. And it just, and even to the point where I, would go into into the coach's room and make suggestions and, hey, what about this? What about that? Because I was seen as a veteran player with championship experience, and they were always open to it. They always listened, and that was a good feeling. And it just kind of helped propel me, through those 4 years that I was with San Antonio, and I really loved it there. And, I always knew that Chicago was going to be my home because I kept coming back in the off season and had, still had the house here, which, by the way, I had just built. I moved into the house in July and got traded in October.
Well, that doesn't sound like something the Bulls would do.
Well, every year I was just like, I thought I might get traded. So I never really, I bought a townhome, didn't want to. Finally, I accepted the fact, well, I guess I'm here. I'm now in my second contract. Let's go ahead and build a house, and boom, traded.
Yeah. So let's fast forward to what's going on right now. I mean, you and I have talked. I mean, you break it down every night on CHGO. Top of the head, if you could change 3 things right now about this current Bulls team that are realistic, what would they be?
Realistic changes. Well,
do you like the front office? So let's start at the top.
I mean, I don't really know much about.
There you go.
I know who they are. I've talked to them on occasion, not very much. If you would wanted me to ask you, what I know about Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley, I know what everybody else knows.
Yeah.
Right. I will say, whether people agree with me or not, the trade to bring in Vooch, I thought was the right thing to do.
100%.
So I want to make sure I give them credit for that because changes need to be made.
Yep.
The only thing I couldn't understand, and it just was, you bring that guy in, and yet you don't run the offense through. You're bringing in an all-star. Now, it was kind of an outlier at the time. You're like, this dude shoots 40% from 3. The guy can score. He's one of the, I don't want to say top 5, but when you start thinking about centers, you're like, yeah, he's one of the top 5 centers in the league.
Yeah.
Right? So you're adding talent to this roster. Yeah, you're getting rid of youth and potential, but you're adding talent immediately. This guy's going to have an immediate impact. But I just didn't understand, how they were using him. So I would have changed that. I love how he's playing right now. I mean, he's back to all-star form. And I hope that regardless of the Bulls' record, that he's not going to get voted in, but I hope the other coaches put him on the team because I think he deserves to be on this year's all-star team with the Eastern Conference. So that's probably number 1, right? I mean, you hear Stacey talk about it. You hear Kendall talk about it. Everybody seems like, seems to be in agreement that, Vooch is still a legitimate top 5 center, and he needs to be honestly get more touches, right? And even the fact that they're playing up tempo more has not affected anything in what regards to what he does. Okay, let's just say offensively. Let's just leave it at that. Number 1.
Right.
Number 2, considering the roster the way it's built at the moment, and considering what now, Joe, I'm just going off what I've seen. Not what this isn't about. Rumors are what I've heard. I mean, I was there at Media Day, and I heard Arturas talk about how they're reshaping. I know they don't want to use the word rebuild. They use the word reshaping. So that tells me now that they agree that this roster doesn't fit. It's a play-in roster because now you have different levels, right? There's playoff teams, there's play-in teams, and then there's other.
Cooper flag teams. Yeah.
Yes, they're a play-in team. But to me, that's not good enough. So knowing that and knowing what was said at Media Day, I probably would be playing, Modest more, Dale and Terry more, all the development, the guys that need to be developed.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you see glimpses. And yes, I would be playing Patrick Williams more because I know I have a feeling if you talk to, the front office, as you say, they would probably say they need more time. Now, I know there's a report that they're open now to moving Patrick, and I don't know if it's accurate. Maybe you can correct me. It
was my story.
Yeah.
It's 100% accurate.
So
yes,
they have admitted that they're open to Patrick needs a new.
He might need a change of scenery.
Right. And I can honestly say that I would agree with that statement 100%. Okay. Now, I know that even if it wasn't the Bulls, I know that would scare any front office. And not just because they gave him a new contract, because the biggest fear is that when you trade somebody that young, and if they go somewhere else and blossom, how does that make you look? So that's not just a fear with the Bulls organization. That's every team.
Yeah, look at Lauri Markkanen. He needed a change of scenery.
Right. So I know a lot of the fans were like, "Why didn't it work here?" Well, there were a lot of factors, and most of them were, not because of him, but it was just not the ideal situation for him. Yeah. In his case, 2 + 2 = 5.
Yep.
He gets traded, and 2 + 2 = 4, and then he becomes an all-star. But that's really not. You could say it's the fault of the Bulls but it was more about the timing than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, right? Cleveland couldn't unlock Lowry either.
So it's one of those things that happens, right?
Yeah.
I do agree that it's probably best for Patrick because we've talked about this many times as far as Bulls fans are concerned. It's not just about Patrick, but it's about apathy.
Yes.
For the organization and the direction they're going at the moment, right? But that's what you have to be careful of. If you could be like, okay, we still need to give Patrick another 2 years, that's fine. But then what happens is the fans they become impatient and they develop an opinion. And regardless of what he does, he cannot change that opinion.
Yep.
He just it's almost like the president, right? The approval rating just keeps getting lower and lower and lower and lower. Even if all of a sudden, he starts to become a guy that averages, 15-8. The fans, he's past his history, right? They're like, whatever. So I think that's also where he needs a new change of scenery because where he goes, it'll be new. And he'll kind of face the challenges that I faced about proving to his teammates, the fans, the coaches, and that may re-energize him and help him realize that, holy crap, I just got traded. That means they didn't want me. Yeah. That means that's how I look at it. That means I failed, right? So I think that would happen. But I would be playing the development guys a lot more. That's number 2.
And then third?
I think that it's what they're trying to do. I think, the same thing with Zach and Vooch. I think those guys need a new team as well. Vooch, because I think he deserves to be on a better team with a chance to possibly win a championship, right? Because I think what some guys don't think about when they're playing is they don't think about their legacy, right? And that would be bad. I mean, I'd feel bad for Vooch if he doesn't get a chance to ever really compete for a championship, and and he would be a 3 or 4 time All-Star. That's a great career, but I know that personally, in the times that I've talked to him, he would be disappointed in his NBA career because he never got a chance to play for a championship. So I think he deserves that. Plus, I think if you do it correctly, you can get value, right? But it's one of those things you kind of have to wait because somebody will be desperate enough. And then I think just with everything that's happened with Zach, unfortunately, what's gone on with his agent, all the stuff that's out there, it would probably because of, that. And probably trust is probably the best word to use because of he said, she said. Did the Bulls front office really say that? Did his agent really said that? Who said what? There's just a lot of unknown, a lot of unrest. And, it'd probably be, good for his career to have a change of scenery as well. I mean, I'd love for him to stay here and be here. But the question is, can you keep him with his salary and still build a championship roster?
It's
expectation. That's mine as a fan, as a former player. That is your expectation as a front office. I think that's a roadblock, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, those are excellent points. I will, before I get you out of here, I like to do something called the interrogation room. I ask you some quick questions. First thing that comes to your mind, just pop it out. Now that I know, more impressive for you, the 4 rings or 1988 SEC Athlete of the Year?
For me, it's the 4 rings.
Okay. Michael
Would you
Jordan.
like me to explain or no?
No. These are just quick hitters. Boom.
Okay. All right.
We'll leave a little mystery here. Michael Jordan, a real tough guy or a guy that likes to throw sucker punches?
Honestly, a little bit of both.
Okay. All right. Over and under of how many NBA threes you had. If the over and under was 3, what would you bet? I want to see if you know your own stats.
Under.
Do you know what you were?
Yeah, because I have bozos that I work with that look that stuff up and just tell me. I think I actually hit 1.
You hit 1.
Correct.
You hit 1. 1 of 15.
But let's also be very clear. I know you don't want an explanation, but that was back in the day when we got fined if we shot threes.
Yeah, I mean, back then you would be chastised. I thought, was your 1 a legit 3, or was it like half court time running out?
No, it was a legit 3. I took a couple fines shooting threes when I wasn't supposed to when games were out of reach. Because my teammates were encouraging me to shoot it.
Do you know how many college threes you took?
Probably none.
None. What is it? How different's the game now, by the way? Greg Popovich, overrated or deserves all the accolades he gets?
Deserves all the accolades he gets.
Your choice, Sophie's choice here, Phil or Pop?
Pop. It was just a better fit for me.
Got you. Smarter kids go to Northwestern or Vanderbilt?
Smarter kids?
Yeah.
They go to Stanford.
That's true. By the way, we had a chance to go on that campus, Vanderbilt, when the Bulls were there a couple of years ago. Phenomenal campus.
Well, I used to work out. Remember I used to work out the Lopez brothers, and also the way Stanford is, those guys they don't get out till mid-June, right?
Right.
So I used to fly to Palo Alto all the time and go on campus and work those guys out in the arena. So I got to see that for about a 6-week stretch every other weekend.
I'm talking about your campus, Vanderbilt.
Oh, Vanderbilt? Oh yeah, it's a beautiful. I mean, it looks so much different now than when I was there. It's gorgeous. It's outstanding.
I was stunned. It's unbelievable. Some of the dorms, KC and I, we probably look like 2 dirty old dudes. We walked into a couple dorms, and they have their own little library with all the bookshelves up above. It was unbelievable. Yeah. I'm like, Kent State did not look like this.
Here's the thing, though, Joe. You probably look like a dirty old man,
right?
But KC probably fit right in. Somebody probably thought he was probably a student getting his 4th master's or his doctorate. He still looks so young. Jeez.
Yeah, I probably look like the adjunct professor who may or may not have some criminal charges that cost him his job.
Yep, and definitely you would have been a professor of sociology.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Toughest class you took at Vanderbilt?
Chemistry.
And did you ever cheat on any of the tests?
No. But here's the best part, though. I don't tell this story a lot, and I probably have actually never told it publicly on a format like this. But I started out at Vanderbilt as an engineer because that's what my father was.
Right.
And I was like, I want to do what my dad does. Huge mistake. Took chemistry, got a C, was pissed, decided to take it again. The second time I got a D. I actually did worse.
Way to learn. Way to learn from your mistakes. Last one. This is a good one. You got a bus filled with the CHGO guys, your new guys. You got another bus filled with your NBC guys, Kendall, Goff, your old guys. They're both going over a cliff. You could only save one. Which bus do you save? Will Perdue.
That's a neither.
That's it. Let him go. Then you get your own show. That's the right answer, Will Perdue. Big Willie style. You know, I always love talking ball with you.
What show I want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, thanks for doing this. I know I'm a bit under the weather, so thanks for being the big man and carrying the load today.
Yeah. But let me say something, Joe.
All right. Okay.
For those that have watched this to the end, I want to say thank you. Okay. But I also want to make sure people understand. My wife calls me, it aggravates my wife when people say that I'm negative. Right?
Okay.
My wife says, what people misunderstand you. You're not negative. What you are is a realist.
There you go.
You look at things, you make an assessment, and you tell it like it is. She said, the problem with today's society is people ask you for the truth, but when they tell you the truth, when you tell them the truth, they don't like it. So then they get pissed.
100%.
And I go back to when I was on NBC Sports Chicago, when I was on CHGO, I always had Jerry Reinsdorf's mind, and still do, in the back of my head. Remember who you're talking to. Okay? This is a blue-collar town. These people deserve to be honesty and transparency, and approach it that way. I mean, at the end of the day, it's entertainment. But as you and I talked about during this podcast, I feel like this Bulls organization should be held to a higher standard than the Wizards and the Magic and, the Minnesota Timberwolves, because of, the culture that they once had, the reputation that they had, the fact that they won 6 championships, the fact that there's a Michael Jordan statue in the atrium, what he stood for, and, what his main objective was and what he was able to accomplish. And also, let's be quite honest, he didn't win championships, but if there was somebody that could rival the attitude and the mental makeup of Michael Jordan, it was Joakim Noah. About just anything but perfection is unacceptable.
Right,
anything but your best effort is unacceptable. And what made Joakim Noah so lovable to all the fans was that attitude that he had, and he played to that attitude. He talked the talk, and he walked the walk. And I don't mean the comments about Boston and Cleveland. Just the guy was just, he had ice water running through his veins. And, I'll take this full circle. You said, you made the joke, about my dog being more aggressive than Patrick. I've even said it on the air a couple times. I would love to see Patrick Williams start eating nails for his meals.
Yeah, we all would. Yeah.
Not only did Joakim Noah eat nails, he basically shit him out whole.
Yeah.
That guy was just, it's from his time in college when I saw him till the time he was in the NBA playing for the Bulls. That was much watched TV, because it's just, he didn't necessarily do something poetic or, have these, massive dunks like Derek, but just from an effort standpoint, he did something every game that would just leave you saying, wow.
That's a heartbeat guy. He was a heartbeat guy.
Yep.
Yep.
I mean, he basically he would rip his heart out of his chest, show it to you, and then put it back in.
Yeah.
Just to let you know what you're up against.
No, well said. Well said.
That's
the
it.
Bulls need more guys like that. Will Perdue, thank you so much for your time answering all these tough questions. And I'm glad the NBC and CHGO guys don't have to feel bad about which team you love most. You did good. You did good. Vanderbilt educated. You did good. Will, thanks a lot, buddy.
All right, man. I appreciate it. Hope you feel better, brother. And
all right.
Do me a favor, man. See if you can bring back a win with this Warriors game, will you?
Yeah, I'll do my best. I'll do my best.
I'm sure they'll do it for you.
Yeah, let's win one for Joey. Remember that movie in the 70s, Win Something for Joey, about John Cappelletti? Yeah, I don't think the Bulls will be doing that for Joe Cowley. Take care, buddy.
See you, brother.
All right. Will Perdue. You know, the nice thing is I've got a wanky internet, so we'll try and get through the rest of this show. Manhattan Beach, obviously, the internet is not the greatest when you're by the ocean. But you can tell he cares, and that's cool. That guys that wore those colors and bleed those colors and accomplished so much in those colors all these years later are still hoping that those colors mean something to these new guys. You don't know if they do, but, you know, it's nice to see that. Some great stories, too. He's great. I mean, you want to talk ball with somebody, he's great. All right, let's go to Cowley Island for a quick little rant. Will Perdue touched on it. You know, you'd like to think, okay, our team is crap, but at least we have some future pillars. And I did this the other day. I looked. Players right now, 24 years old or younger on the Bulls. I mean, they have a nice amount, 8 of them. Modest, Kobe, Julian, Josh Giddey, Jalen Smith, who looks 34, but he's only 24. THT, Taylor Horton Tucker, and Patrick Williams. You would like to think, we got all these young guys that are up and coming, but now go through that list and tell me, besides Kobe, which ones are you kind of excited about? Modest, exciting, raw skill, but he's not playing enough. Julian and Dalen, you could argue in the month of January, they've kind of gone backwards. Josh Giddey and Patrick Williams, they're sometimes not even finishing games. So is that the fault of the player? Is that the fault of the big development program that Arturis and Mark Eversley put in place when they got this job? Or is it the fault of the coaching staff for not giving them the minutes? To me, coaches don't tank, so minutes are earned. It's up to these players to, earn these minutes. But if I'm a Bulls fan, when a head hits that pillow at night, I'm not too excited about the future because the guys they have in right now all have some warts, and unless they start getting covered up, and like I said, Kobe's probably the best of that group easily, and he's got a very movable contract, so keep an eye out on that. So, all right, let's get to the list. We all had a nice chat with Lonzo Ball after the Clippers game. Obviously, Lonzo, LA guy. So he's in the trade rumors. These are the 5 best destinations for Lonzo Ball. Big picture, too. So we asked him, do you think you'll ever be a Laker again or an LA again? He's very, I don't look into the future. But number 5, OKC. You're telling me they would not love to just bring him off the bench? They have Alex Caruso coming off the bench. Now they got Lonzo Ball. I mean, their defense is already elite. Good luck scoring on them come postseason. Boston, same thing. I mean, this would be for the postseason. If Cleveland is a problem for them, all of a sudden you bring Lonzo Ball in, you give him 24, 26 minutes. He's able to lock down Spider. He's able to put Garland in the mixer just to ensure that they do get by Cleveland in the East. Number 3, Charlotte. What does Lonzo Ball do for Charlotte? Nothing, but he's reunited with LaMelo. Who doesn't want to see the Ball brothers playing? And don't forget, LiAngelo's out there. He's got the record contract, but also he's a free agent for basketball. The Knicks, number 2. Again, they need depth. They need defense. Lonzo Ball, perfect fit. And number 1, Lonzo Ball goes back to the Lakers. The rumor today is that, I think it was Bleacher Report, that the Lakers are putting packages together and trying to target LaMelo as well. Again, LeVar Ball always said that the three boys all need to play with each other, and once they do, they will be NBA champions. Los Angeles Lakers is at their place that they do it. So that's it. Hopefully the sickness that hovers over this team and over its writers dissipates pretty soon. But I want to thank Will Perdue. Gave us a lot of great time. Ryan McGuffey, as usual. And I got next.